Chinese teenager was found dead on his high school campus. Thousands of people are now joining his mother's call for transparency, but police have started arresting protesters. Nearly 300 Chinese maritime militia ships sailing in Philippine waters. It marks Beijing's largest ever incursion in the area. China angers another of its neighbors. The regime warns Bangladesh not to join a U.S.-led alliance that's working to counter Beijing's influence. A U.S. Senate committee votes in favor of a new bill. It seeks to prevent Communist China from exploiting loopholes in key technology sectors. And more construction problems surface in China. Glass is missing from an 850-foot glass-bottom bridge, and a pavilion is toppled by strong winds, leading to injuries and even deaths. The accidents are caused by the country's so-called tofu buildings, known to crumble because of extremely poor construction. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. While many mothers around the world were celebrating Mother's Day, one mother in China had perhaps the worst Mother's Day she could ever think of. Her son died mysteriously at school that day.
Thousands of people in southwestern China's Chengdu city are calling for transparency after a local high school allegedly covered up the death of a student on campus. Large numbers of protesters gathered in front of the school on Tuesday. They demanded that authorities tell the truth about the incident. A lady shouted outrageous after police arrested some people at the scene. Chinese police posted online messages on Wednesday labeling the protesters hostile foreign forces. Authorities sent out large numbers of police officers to suppress the protests and to prevent what they call a color revolution. And what triggers such protests? It all began with a local high school junior around 16 or 17 years old called Lin Wei-chi. Lin's mother dropped him off at school on Mother's Day, not knowing it would be the last time she saw her only son. The school said that Lin jumped off a campus building later that day. About 2 hours later, an ambulance arrived at the scene and announced that he had died. That's slower than the standard response time. But Lin's mother said her son wished her happy Mother's Day before parting with her, showing no sign that he was planning to commit suicide. The paramedics sent Lin's body directly to a funeral home without first getting permission from the family. After Lin's death, his mother went to the school to find out what happened. But the school warned other students against discussing the incident with anyone, or else they will be kicked out and won't be able to graduate. But the school's threat didn't work on everyone. The father of one of Lin's schoolmates exposed what the school did after Lin had died. He wrote, "First, the school sealed off the doors and the windows on one side of all the classrooms, under the pretense that they were spraying pesticides. That's because people could see how he jumped from the building from that side, so that no one could see what they did to the corpse. Second, they cut the wrists of the corpse to conceal the truth from investigators. This might give people an impression that Lin cut his own wrist to end his life." The father struggled before revealing what was happening behind the scenes. That's because the school might penalize his child studying there. But the father decided to speak out against the school. Otherwise, he says, his child might be the next victim. Lin's mother said the school allowed her to watch the surveillance footage later on, but clips of Lin's alleged jump were missing. Chinese Communist Party or CCP mouthpiece Xinhua News published incomplete surveillance footage online on Thursday. They were also missing the part about Lin's alleged jump. Xinhua also blurred out the footage in which Lin allegedly cut his own wrists before jumping off. The mother said the school barred her from going on campus and looking at Lin's body. She wrote, "The school says that they will start legal proceedings and will not further comment on it. As a mother, I'm filled with hatred and pain. We are devastated and have no other options." The case is going viral online and many people are trying to figure out who should be responsible for the tragedy. After conducting investigations, local authorities say that Lin took his own life due to personal problems. They ruled out foul play, saying there's no evidence suggesting that anyone insulted or bullied Lin on campus. But the father of Lin's schoolmate disagrees with the conclusion. He wrote, "My child told me that Lin's chemistry teacher Wang Li Sha who is also the department head in charge of all the teachers at the school, was preparing for her child to study abroad. Only one student has the opportunity to go, and it went to Lin. The so-called mother pushed Lin off the building. Lin was a top student at the school and received multiple chemistry and physics awards. The incident is causing a public outcry. Even Chinese state-run media are blasting local authorities for jumping to the conclusion too soon, before police investigations even ended. Local police said a thorough investigation is underway.
Philippine-China tensions in the South China Sea continue to escalate. In its latest incursion, Beijing sent close to 300 maritime militia ships into Philippine waters. The incursion took place in the western waters of the Philippines' exclusive economic zone. A Philippine government task force reported on Wednesday that bigger groupings of Chinese maritime militia were sighted at the artificial islands of China, while some were observed near islands occupied by the Philippines. In an effort to assert its territorial claims, Beijing has built artificial islands on reefs in the South China Sea, and many of them are inside the Philippines' exclusive economic zone. The Philippine task force says they've reported this incursion to relevant agencies for the possible diplomatic actions. Beijing's incursion comes shortly after the Philippine military announced plans to also turn islands there into military hubs. The Philippines has previously said they will protest every day until the Chinese ships leave their waters. A South Asian country is turning a deaf ear to the Chinese regime's threatening remarks. Bangladesh is rejecting the Chinese ambassador's warning against joining the U.S.-led Quad alliance. The country's foreign minister said on Tuesday his country is an independent state. He added that they will decide their own foreign policy based on the best interests of the people. The minister described Communist China's style of diplomacy as unusual and aggressive. Earlier this week, the Chinese ambassador to Bangladesh said that Bangladesh joining the Quad alliance would damage its relations with Beijing. The CCP considers the Quad alliance a small anti-Beijing club. Its member states are the U.S., Australia, Japan, and India. They have at least one thing in common. Their relations with the Chinese regime are all getting worse. In March, U.S. President Biden said that the Quad would be a vital arena for cooperation to counter Beijing in the years ahead. A U.S. Senate committee passed a bipartisan bill on Tuesday. It would inject billions of dollars to counter competition from the Chinese Communist Party.
After debating for nearly 6 hours, the Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation voted 24-4 to pass the Endless Frontier Act. It authorizes more than $110 billion over 5 years to invest in research, education, communications, and key technology areas. This bill is sponsored by Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and co-sponsored by Republican Senator Todd Young.
I'm especially proud of my own team, who spent countless hours developing a strong, pro-innovation, anti-China Communist Party piece of legislation that will help the United States win the 21st century.
The Senate committee also adopted Senator Ted Cruz's amendment to this bill. It would prevent the Chinese Communist Party from exploiting loopholes. Cruz said CCP-linked outlets are openly trying to purchase radio stations inside the U.S. and across our borders, with the aim of controlling what Americans see, hear, and ultimately think. But some House conservatives criticize that this bill doesn't do enough to protect American interests from CCP threats. They say the bill should take tougher actions against China for stealing America's intellectual property. Senator Schumer says he expects this bill would move to full Senate vote before the end of May.
During a Senate hearing on the pandemic response, Senator Rand Paul asked several questions about the origin of the CCP virus, leading to a tense moment with Dr. Anthony Fauci.
I do not have any accounting of what the Chinese may have done, and I'm fully in favor of any further investigation of what went on in China. However, I will repeat again, the NIH and NIAID categorically has not funded gain-of-function research to be conducted in the Wuhan Institute of Virology.
You do support it in the U.S. We have 11 labs doing it, and you have allowed it here. We have a committee to do it, but the committee has granted every exemption. You're fooling with Mother Nature here. You're allowing super viruses to be created with a 15% mortality. It's very dangerous. I think it was a huge mistake to share this with China, and it's a huge mistake to allow this to continue in the United States. And we should be very careful to investigate where this virus came from.
Paul continued to press Fauci about whether U.S. health agencies under his leadership could have funded the risky Chinese research that may have led to the outbreak. Fauci strongly denied this. According to federal records published online, the NIH, which oversees Fauci's agency, provided $3.7 million to EcoHealth Alliance. That group conducted research on genetic analysis of bat coronaviruses and how they could spread to humans. The Trump administration terminated the EcoHealth grant last year. Senator Rand Paul also asked Dr. Fauci about allegations that an American virologist worked at the lab in Wuhan, China, conducting work that would make pathogens more deadly or more easily transmissible. Some theories say the CCP virus leaked from the Wuhan lab. The lab is a few miles from where the virus outbreak is said to have first been detected. But EcoHealth Alliance maintains that a Wuhan lab leak isn't the cause of the pandemic. Australian universities may have to shut down their Beijing-funded Confucius Institutes in the coming months. At least 4 colleges, including the University of Sydney and the University of Queensland, have submitted their contracts with Confucius Institutes for federal scrutiny. According to the Sydney Morning Herald, a Confucius Institute at a Melbourne college will close this year. 13 Australian universities currently host Confucius Institutes. They are all expected to submit their contracts for review by June 10th. An Australian Foreign Minister spokesman said these contracts would be examined case by case. Australian Senator and Parliament Intelligence Committee Chair James Patterson is urging universities to reflect on their decision to host Confucius Institutes. He said universities should carefully consider whether hosting an entity funded by a foreign authoritarian government engaged in serious human rights abuses for the purposes of promoting its soft power is something consistent with their values. A clash in the United Nations over human rights abuses in Xinjiang. Dozens of countries are speaking up for Uyghurs at a UN meeting, and Communist China reacts fiercely. Here are the details.
The U.S., the U.K., and Germany organized the United Nations virtual event on human rights abuses in Xinjiang on Wednesday. 18 UN member states, including Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, co-sponsored the event. Some 50 countries participated despite threats from Beijing.
And I want to thank all co-sponsors who came together despite some massive Chinese threats.
Last week, China's UN mission sent a note to UN member states claiming that accusations of human rights issues in Xinjiang are lies. Beijing blames the co-sponsors for being, as they call, obsessed with provoking confrontation with China. The British ambassador to the UN describes the abuses in Xinjiang as one of the worst human rights crises of our time. She is calling for an urgent investigation.
We're here today to discuss these issues and to ask China to allow immediate, meaningful, and unfettered access to the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights and her office.
Chinese UN officials claimed during the event that China has nothing to hide in Xinjiang and Xinjiang is always open. They also add that other countries' attempt of using Xinjiang to contain China is doomed to fail.
We will keep standing up and speaking out until China's government stops its crimes against humanity and the genocide of Uyghurs and other minorities in Xinjiang.
The Australian Strategic Policy Institute's new research shows that the birth rate in Xinjiang has fallen by almost 50% since 2017. They published the research on Thursday based on official Chinese data. They also found that the largest declines in birth rates took place where Uyghur communities were concentrated.
What is your biggest nightmare? A Chinese tourist probably saw his worst nightmare come true last Friday. He got stranded 850 feet high in the air on a shattered glass-floored bridge. Strong winds blew out the glass panels of the bridge. It was at a tourist attraction in northeastern China's Jilin province. The tourist had a grasp onto the railing in midair for half an hour before the police came to the rescue. Then he was able to climb to safety. He later got sent to a hospital. Authorities then shut down the tourism area. The news got over 4 million views on the Chinese social media platform Weibo alone. This incident triggered heated discussions about the safety of glass bridges. This is not the first time that a glass bridge in China has had quality issues. Some glass bridge accidents in past years even led to casualties. China saw its first glass bridge in 2016. So far, there are over 1,000 glass bridges across the country. Some of them are walkways, suspension bridges, observation decks, or glass slides. On top of quality issues, glass bridges also seem to have a supervision problem. Chinese media pointed out that the construction of glass bridge projects lacks relevant national standards. There are no uniform requirements for a project's stability, wind resistance, and vibration reduction levels. And it is not clear which department should supervise this kind of high-risk project. Now for another construction safety-related accident in China. Strong winds knocked down a pavilion in eastern China's Zhejiang province on Monday, killing 4 people and injuring 3. They were in the pavilion sheltering from the rain. Authorities claim the wind caused the accident. But netizens questioned the quality of the pavilion, calling it tofu quality. This is a common term in China for buildings or construction projects with poor quality. Some posted online, this newly built pavilion couldn't stand the wind, but some ancient pavilions survived. They questioned if construction workers cut corners. A netizen who seemed to be an insider posted 4 died, many seriously injured. They were gardeners sheltering from the rain, and the pavilion's pillars were not reinforced. Countries are still competing for 5G technology, but Chinese telecom giant Huawei is eyeing the next step. For the past 2 years, the company's goal has been the next generation of technology, 6G. So how are they doing?
Tech companies around the world are already developing 6G technology, and it seems like Communist China is ahead in the game. Over a third of the world's 6G patent applications come from China. That's more than any other country. This, according to China's state-run Intellectual Property Administration's report on 6G patents last week. The report says there are more than 38,000 patent applications in 6G technology from all over the world. The CEO of Chinese telecom giant Huawei told The Economist magazine 2 years ago that Huawei's 6G research is world-leading. As per tech site The Logic, Huawei started researching 6G mobile technology at its research facility in Ottawa, Canada that same year. 6G is the next generation of wireless network. It's expected to be 100 times faster than 5G. If it takes you a few seconds to download a movie with 5G network, 6G can do it before you even move your finger away from the download button. And it can also do a lot more than that. Some technicians are coming up with a 6G formula. They're saying 6G equals 5G plus AI 2.0 plus satellite internet. 6G is important in that countries can use it in submarines, space, and other military operations. Researcher Wang Lei from China's Intellectual Property Administration says, in the race of rulemaking for the next generation of technology, patents are the most valuable and the most powerful weapon. And China has more than just Huawei. It also has its own company to compete against Elon Musk's Starlink and to prepare for 6G technology. The Chinese regime established its first state-owned satellite internet company late last month. It's called China Satellite Network Group, and it's located just 60 miles south of Beijing. A state-owned bureau will finance the new company. And Beijing's 6G ambitions don't stop here. Last November, China sent the world's first 6G satellite into orbit. They launched it to test the 6G signal performance in space. It remains to be seen whether Huawei and Communist China will be able to lead in 6G technology.
The efficacy of a Chinese vaccine is put under the microscope. This after virus cases doubled in the world's most vaccinated nation. It mainly used China's Sinopharm vaccine. The island nation of Seychelles is in the Indian Ocean near Africa. It has a population of about 100,000 people and has fully vaccinated about 60% of them. The majority of them got the Chinese-made Sinopharm jabs. Some got an Indian-made vaccine under a license from AstraZeneca. But Seychelles' health ministry said on Monday the number of active cases had more than doubled in the country since last week. They say the rate of transmission remains high and is of concern. Seychelles is currently the world's most vaccinated nation. In second and third place are Israel and the United Arab Emirates. Among these countries, only Israel is not dealing with a severe increase in virus cases. It mostly used Western vaccines. The other countries mostly use Sinopharm vaccines. The World Health Organization recently approved China's Sinopharm vaccine for emergency use. A Taiwanese company is trying to please both Taiwanese and Chinese consumers, but their strategy seems to have failed. They said that Taiwanese products have better quality than Chinese ones, but they also said they support Beijing's One China policy. NTD's Don Ma has more.
Taiwan-based computer hardware maker Gigabyte is facing backlash in both Taiwan and China. That's after it made comments offending both sides. It all started from a post the company put up on its website. Gigabyte boasted that its products are of high quality, unlike other brands that use low-cost, low-quality Chinese manufacturers. It bragged that 90% of its laptops are made in Taiwan, adhering to strict quality control and high-quality standards. The remark quickly caught the attention of the Chinese regime. China's Communist Youth League posted a screenshot of the remark on Chinese social media platform Weibo on Tuesday, and wrote in a caption asking Gigabyte, "Who gave you so much courage?" It quickly sparked an outcry. Some Chinese netizens characterized Gigabyte's comments as a blatant provocation. Some warned that Gigabyte will soon taste the iron fists of consumers. Following the backlash, Gigabyte issued an apology. It was a complete 180-degree turn from before. It said that Gigabyte is deeply proud of the quality of made-in-China products. And despite being a Taiwanese company, it went on to say that Gigabyte has always supported the One China policy, adding that it has been doing business in China for more than 2 decades. But it seems the apology did little to pacify the backlash. By late Tuesday night, major Chinese e-commerce platforms have taken down Gigabyte's products. The company's stocks dropped for 2 days. It fell 10% in Taipei on Wednesday. What Gigabyte's apology did achieve, however, was backlash from the Taiwanese side. Taiwanese news outlet Liberty Times accused Gigabyte of double-crossing Taiwan. One Taiwanese netizen accused Gigabyte of kowtowing to Beijing. Another questioned, how can Gigabyte support the annexation of Taiwan by an enemy country? Gigabyte is one among many brands Chinese consumers have boycotted recently. Clothing brands like H&M, Nike, and Adidas have also seen boycotts. It was for their stance on the treatment of Uyghur Muslims in China's Xinjiang region. Don Ma, NTD News.
And that's all for today's China in Focus. But before you go, we have a special announcement. China in Focus is partnering with the Epoch Times newspaper on their new subscription-based streaming platform Epoch TV. That's where you can watch our exclusive special reports every Friday night. In them, we'll explore questions like where the CCP virus actually came from, how China lures foreign companies in, steals their technology, and kicks them out, how the ancient Chinese philosophy of good governance differs from the current-day communist regime, and much more. Be sure to check out those investigative episodes by clicking on the link in the description down below. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you really want to understand what's happening with China. Meanwhile, you can still watch our Monday to Thursday episodes for free on YouTube, NTD Cable TV, the NTD website, and the Epoch TV website. In the next episode of our special report, we look at what's going wrong with U.S. carmaker Tesla's love affair with China. Once a darling for the Chinese regime, Tesla is now facing an unprecedented attack from Chinese regulators and state media.
They do this every single time.
The better Tesla's development, the more nervous the Chinese regime will become.
And what does the saga have to do with the Chinese Communist Party's ambition to dominate the next generation of technologies? To find out, watch our episode on Epoch TV this coming Friday. Thanks for watching, and see you tomorrow.